This is it, my friends. Part 3 of our 3-part series is coming to a close. Alright guys, this is the final feedback form that I use for beta reading. We've gone through my chapters feedback form, we've gone through my application form, but today we are going to be talking about my final form, which is my final feedback form. How many times can I say form in this video? Yeah, I'm kind of bummed that this series is coming to an end because it's actually really fun to have a series to film. Like a lot of fun. It's nice to know what I'm going to be like putting out every kind of week. So I'm kind of bummed. If y'all have a different series that I could like do, let me know because I'd love to do it. But yeah. I'm kind of bummed that our beta reading is coming to a close. If you've missed part 1 and part 2 of this series, we just talked about the questions I ask my beta readers when it comes to them applying to be a beta reader. And in part 2, we go over my chapter by chapter feedback that I ask my betas to get the most specific feedback possible. And in today's video, we're going to be going over the final feedback. It's all the questions that I ask my beta readers when it comes to their final thoughts on my novel. So I guess without further ado, let's hop into the questions I ask for final feedback. So, you know, we ask the preliminary questions, name, email, all that good stuff. However, we jump right in to the nitty-gritty good stuff when we ask, what's right? What's a particular scene that you enjoyed? Things you liked about the book, theme, writing style, characters you enjoyed, etc. Well, I probably should preface this by saying that I got all of these amazing questions online. I don't remember who posted them back when I was beta reading for Hitting a Home Run, which if you did not know was Out of My League's first title. So these questions came from a very long time ago. If I can find them, I'll leave them down below. What I forgot to mention is I actually have these forms, the application, the chapters feedback, and the final feedback down below, and we'll see what format it ends up being. I'll try Google Docs, but I'm not always the best at Google Docs. I don't really know what I'm doing. But we'll try that, and so if they're down below regardless, whether it's a PDF, Google Doc, or something like that. Just so you have a space where you can use these questions yourself, I will leave them completely blank so they won't say if the room fits on them, and they won't have my embarrassing header. So don't worry about that. It's going to be completely blank for your stuff. The what's right question, it kind of is self-explanatory, but I'm just asking the reader what is their favorite part in a sense. What is something that stood out to them in terms of, oh my gosh, this was super good, you nailed it here. I love to see what scenes really stuck out the most to readers in an overall aspect. Like I asked people what their favorite scene was in a chapter by chapter form, but knowing which ones really stuck out the most overall is really interesting to see and really helpful. Next question, I ask them what's wrong. So plot inconsistencies, grammar and formatting errors, and I will side note this that grammar and formatting errors aren't always important when it comes to beta reading because this is obviously not going to be your final draft. So I'm going to be cutting this question in the future. If it's glaringly horrible, I want their opinion. But if I have a few grammar errors here and there and spelling errors here and there, unless it totally pulls them out of the story, I would prefer that they try and look at the story as a whole rather than trying to nitpick, I misplaced a comma. I'd rather have the overall content good stuff. For the next question, I ask them, what is confusing? So are there plot holes? Are there characters you can't keep track of? Are there elements that don't make sense? Once I get to the end of the book, what is still not clicking? What are some like loose threads that haven't been properly tied up? This is a great question for that. It's a great place for them to put their feedback on that stuff because when it comes to the end of the book, you don't want any loose threads. You don't want anything to be confusing in a sense that it pulls the reader out of the story. While you are in the story, you can have confusing parts as long as they're tied up and cleared up in the end, but having them not cleared up in the end is not that great. Hey everyone, Editing Sarah here. I also forgot to mention, I don't know how I forgot to mention this, that I have a what's missing category. I ask the reader anything that they think would improve the book if it's added. This is a really beneficial moment because sometimes they think something is going to happen and it doesn't, and that can be really helpful for you to add on later. Maybe it's a good scene that's a good idea and you want to use it. So this is a very important question. Do you feel like any characters should have more or less to their story? Maybe if you've read What Are Friends For, you know that Remy has a best friend named Eloise. Now, let's say Eloise deserved to have more screen time, which she totally does because she's awesome. This is a spot where the reader can put, I wanted more of Eloise. I want to make sure that everybody gets their own kind of, corner of time to them and is detailed in a way that makes them essential to the plot, but not giving them the full spotlight. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, they're still side characters, but I don't want the side characters to be side characters for the sake of being side characters. You get me? I think you get me. I don't know if I get myself. That, to me, is a good box to have. In my If the Broom Fits story, Blair, which is my main character, has a best friend named Donnie. And in this form, for the If the Broom Fits feedback form, a lot of people wanted more screen time of Donnie, which I totally agree because Donnie is a funny dude. This next one makes me laugh every time. The question is, were there any names of people/places that didn't work for you? This question, I remember I saw it and I'm like, this is dumb. No one's gonna say anything because in my mind, I'm like, names are all subjective. You have the right to pick whatever name you want, you have that right. And I remember I included it just in case I missed anything cringy or anything like that. One of my betas commented on Elijah Greyback's name. At that point in time, he was Elijah Grey, Greyback, so Greyback instead of Greyback. And the beta reader said that it was an ugly name and they did not like it. Greyback is just gross to them. It made a weird image. And the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, that's true. The thing is though, in my head, I didn't pronounce it Greyback. I pronounced it Greyback. I just made the A to an E in my head. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just change the A to an E. Oh my gosh. But a question like that can really catch you in something you think is totally fine, like Elijah Greyback. I thought that was totally fine because in my head I was saying Greyback. But it pointed out to me, yeah, that could be changed and it could be totally fine. By all means, you don't have to use this question or listen to people on this question because, like I said, names are basically subjective, but sometimes they might catch something that you didn't. And then the last question in this section is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you enjoy reading this book? This kind of gives you an idea of what an average star rating might be. So if somebody gives it a 6, you might want to go back through their feedback and see what didn't sit right with them. But if they give you a 7, 8, 9, 10, you're on the right track. You know what time it is. It's pause time. We're gonna take a brief pause so you can scroll down, hit that like button, tap that subscribe button, and join this family. Likes help so much for small YouTubers like me, and I'm really excited to grow this family that we're growing here. We're almost at 350 subscribers at this point in time, which is amazing, and I absolutely cannot believe it. I am so happy to have this little corner of Authortube to share with you guys. And don't forget, we have so many fun videos coming up regarding Out of My League, including the costs that it took to publish Out of My League. I know you guys liked that video when I did it for What Are Friends For, so that video is going to be coming up soon. But before I get off on a super long tangent, let's just take a pause for you to like and subscribe if you want to. Okay, let's get back into the video. So this is my other questions category, which I don't know why it's in a different category, but what is your opinion on the book's length? And for this one, I offer 4 suggestions actually. Too long, too short, or just right. And then an other category, which I don't know why there's an other. I might cut that. For If the Broom Fits, unsurprisingly, people said it was too short. They felt like things could have been expanded more upon, which I get. I completely understand that, and I will have to do some more thinking about it too, because what I wrote If the Broom Fits intended for a novella length. It's 40,000 words at the moment, and I don't want to bulk it up for the sake of bulking it up. I feel like the story gets told in a way that totally makes sense, but I'm going to have my editor look at it and we're going to brainstorm some ideas and see maybe if I do need to bulk it up or if it's gonna be okay the length it is. But that question really helps because if somebody says it's too long, then you can see, okay, maybe there are some parts that I need to cut that aren't quite relevant to the story and will make the story cohesive and tighter as a whole. What are your final thoughts on the main character? Unless you're writing that kind of story, you really don't want them to be like,
they're a jerk.
You know, like that's not the feeling that you want. At least that's not the feeling that I want my reader to come away from regarding my main character. I had this struggle with Blair, and it's funny because I modeled Blair's attitude a bit after my attitude when I was a teenager. So it's funny. It makes me laugh so hard. You don't want them to come away with negative feelings towards your main character unless that's the kind of story that you're writing. I write young adult romance, so I want them to like my main character and the love interest. So knowing where their thoughts lie in the final moments of the story is really important. And then how did you feel at the end of the book? Satisfied, unsettled, or disappointed? Or any other response that they have left to share? I want them to feel satisfied. I just mentioned a second ago that I write young adult romance. So I want them to come away from this story feeling like,
that was a cute story.
You know, I want that feel good, warm feeling. I want to give it to them, and yeah, I don't want them to be like,
that could have been better.
Or,
that wasn't realistic.
You know? So this is a good question to ask to gauge their feelings on it. Were there parts of the book that were slower than they should have been, or were you lost interest? This question is specifically good for a bigger group of people because if everybody says the same thing, it's really important to mark where their drop-off was. So you can go back and make it livelier, maybe even cut it entirely. In whatever way that can improve the book, you want to do that. So if there's several people saying that this one scene is really slow, it's good to know that so you can go back and evaluate it, you know? Like I said in my last video, I am the kind of person that takes every single person's feedback and evaluates it, which isn't what you're typically supposed to do. You're supposed to go in the rule of threes, which if 3 people say it, then you evaluate it, or if you have a smaller sample size, in the rule of 2 perhaps. I think I'm just like a person that wants to like look at everybody's opinion. Everybody's opinion is valid. So I really tried to look over what everybody's saying and see if there's any truth to it. So if you want to do that, you totally can. You don't have to. That's not a requirement. If you want to stick to the rule of 3, that's totally your right. You totally can. And I probably should, because I sometimes let every single negative thing get me when really I should be kind of focusing on some of the negative things if they've been repeated often. The next question is the catch-all. This field is for any feedback that didn't quite fit anywhere else or just some general comments. Like it says, it's just the catch-all field, so maybe I didn't ask the right question. They can put their feedback there and give me their last final thoughts before we close our time together, and yeah. And then I asked them, would they like to be listed in the acknowledgements of this story? If so, how would they like to be referred as? So they would give their name, their nickname, their initials, whatever they prefer to be listed as in the acknowledgements. They'd put that there. And then I asked them, would you like to be on the list for future beta reads? You are under no obligation to do so in the future. I'll just shoot you an email when the time comes to see if you're interested. And then we go to yes, absolutely, or no, thank you. So far, all of the betas have said yes, I'd like to be part of this in the future, which is a really good feeling. Honestly, it makes me excited that people like my stuff enough to want to review it in the future. So yeah, not everybody will be used again. You know, there might be some people that they went through this whole process with you, but they were not a good fit. Totally, maybe they didn't give you the right kind of feedback. Maybe their feedback was too positive and there are no negatives, which is nice, but not all the time super helpful. But this is just an idea of seeing if people want to beta read for you again in the future, and if they do, and if you liked their feedback, win-win. Before we close out today's video, I wanted to go over with you guys some responses that I got on each individual feedback form, you know? But the only feedback form that I have done recently is my If the Broom Fits feedback form, which I can't really go over without giving up way too many details. But you guys, I am a pack rat. I wasn't on my email anymore, but I still have the hard copies of my What Are Friends For beta reading feedback. I still have it. So let's go over it together. So I'm not gonna mention whose feedback form I'm reading off of, just because I don't feel like that's fair. But I'm going to be going over the chapters feedback first, and then we'll go over the final feedback form afterwards. But I'll do it by different people. So I have one final feedback form and I have one chapter feedback form. Let's go over the chapter feedback forms together. So I asked them which segment of books they're giving their chapter feedback forms information on. We did that. And then I asked them what were their initial thoughts on this collection of chapters. And this was chapters 1 through 5 of Waterfronts 4. So this is real feedback. I'm not going to pick out the prettiest one at all. So we're just picking a random one. They said, very typical contemporary vibe, which I like. The setting puts you in a rom-com mood. The story is only starting out, so it's difficult to understand it all. There is no info dump, and the information release is great. I enjoyed it enough to want to keep reading further. Yay! I asked them what their favorite scene was and why, and they said the kissing scene. Even though I read the description of the story, I did not see that coming, and it was perfectly written. Yay! Their least favorite scene was the underwear shopping. Was a little weird, but it's the whole point, isn't it? And I will say the underwear shopping in the beta reading draft that this person read is completely different from the underwear scene that was in the final version. It was edited much differently. I asked them what were their thoughts on the main character in this chapter, and they said that they liked them. A clear picture was painted through the writing as far as Remy goes. She is not unlikable, but I need to get to know her better and would like to see her character develop throughout the novel, which it does. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you enjoy this collection of chapters? And this person rated it a 7. On a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for the next chapters? And this person rated it an 8. Is the amount of reading too much? And they said nope. Are there any characters that feel flat or unreal? And they said no. I asked them if there was any part of the storyline that feels unrealistic, and they said, if I have a guy best friend, I wouldn't take him underwear shopping, but I like how this prompts other things in the story. Which, I get it. Which, their comment makes total sense, because in the beta reading draft, which I completely forgot, she took him underwear shopping on purpose. So they went to the mall to buy underwear. However, in the final draft of Waterfronts 4, they go to this store that has clothing, perfume, and then she happens to wander into the underwear section and picks out a pair. It's not like they're in a store that is dedicated to underwear, which it was in the beta reading draft. So I get how that might have been a little bit strange. I asked, is there anything else you'd like to tell me about these chapters? And then they said, not so far. I really liked the last chapters and I would like to see where the story goes. Was there something that didn't sit well with them? They said no. So that is the chapter feedback form. And here is the final feedback form. I'm not going to say their name. I asked a different person. It wasn't the same person from the chapter feedback form. Don't worry. I asked them what is right. They said the scene when Remy first kisses Elijah, not knowing it was him. I think the description of how it felt to her was excellent, and the subsequent feelings she had every time she saw or thought of him. I think you captured first love very well. I asked them what is wrong, and this is why I don't suggest mentioning the grammar or spelling errors, because this person's answer was, I would suggest a deeper proofread for small errors. Occasionally there seemed to be a word that I felt that had been left by mistake after a change in the sentence, which is a totally valid point of answering my question, which is why I would not ask about grammar or formatting, because that's not what I wanted here. I wanted what in the plot or character development felt wrong. Does that make sense? But it's totally my fault because I did ask for grammar and formatting errors, which I'm going to cut in the future. I asked them what's confusing, and they said, at the party, I had initially thought that Eloise had deliberately led Remy into the room with Elijah maliciously. However, the rest of the book changes this, which is important because Eloise did not do it on purpose. I feel like I'm giving away a lot of the book here, but you know what? It's fine. It's all in the description anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. Which is a good thing that this person mentioned that, because that is some confusion that I needed to clear up. What's missing? They said, I don't think it took from the book, but it's really not explained why Elijah's brother fell in with the wrong people in the first place. Which is actually not something that I talked about in the final version. I don't think I'm ever going to do a book with Elijah's brother. His name is Terry. I don't think I'm ever going to have a book dedicated solely to him, just because he is not high school age. I think at this point in time he is going to be 20. So he's a little bit out of my age range. If I ever did new adult, perhaps I would go into his character. However, I am currently working on a story that has somebody else. That was from Elijah's brother's kind of wrong people crowd. So somebody else that was involved in the same situation Elijah's brother was involved in is going to be the main character of one of my next stories. Not If the Broom Fits, not Telling the Perfect Lie, but he's coming. And he is pretty dang hot, if I have to say. Did they feel like any character should have had more or less of their story? They said, I think Eloise could have done with a little more background and more scenes with Remy. I actually really enjoyed their friendship. In the beta reading draft, Eloise did not have that many scenes. She doesn't have actually that many in the final draft, but she has enough, I would say, to make her a substantial character. Were there any names of people / places that didn't work for you? And they said, I'm not really good with names, but I remembered the main characters' names throughout. I thought you did well. I asked them on a scale of 1 to 10 how much they enjoyed reading this book, and they said a 10. The book's length was just right. I asked them what their final thoughts were on the main character, and they thought that Remy personified a teen going through her life in her final year at school. Her emotions and reactions were spot on, and she was an enjoyable read. I asked them if they were ever emotionally affected by the plot or characters. They said I was, ooh, you know, we're going to cut that because that's a spoiler. That's a spoiler. I asked them how did they feel at the end of the book, satisfied, unsettled, disappointed. They said, I think you ended the story well. Everything was wrapped up, and I liked how it concluded. And this ending is drastically different from the final ending. If you are subscribed to my newsletter, you would have gotten the alternate ending. So yeah, it's very different. It's very different. The catch-all. Is there any feedback that didn't quite fit somewhere else? And they said they couldn't remember if they said this or not, but this isn't my usual kind of story to read. However, I very much enjoyed reading it. The story kept me entertained, and I was hooked. I was invested in Remy's life and eager to read each new set of chapters. Thank you for letting me be part of this beta reading. I loved it. So that's kind of what the feedback looks like. There were some more that were I think a little bit more constructive, that they weren't totally. Yeah, I have a few longer ones. This person, like, I'm gonna block out their name and email, but they gave me this and this. I probably should have read this one, but this was just a little bit long, you know, which is great. This is an amazing feedback to have. Absolutely 100% amazing. But it's just a little long to read on camera. I think these people's feedback is really helpful and really insightful, and I thought maybe just sharing it with you guys is kind of fun, especially because it's what are friends for, you know? I can share the details on this. I can share the nitty-gritty, even though it could spoil for some things. I feel like most of you who are watching this channel have already read What Are Friends For, and if you haven't, What Are Friends For is right now on sale on Amazon. So unfortunately it's not on sale on Barnes & Noble or Nook. It's the same thing, or Kobo or Apple, but it's on sale on Amazon until the 7th, I think. Yeah, the 7th. So if you haven't had your chance to read it yet, now's the time. Get your copy before Out of My League comes out, which it debuts June 16th. It's coming very, very fast. I can't believe it. So yeah, that is my 3-part series on my beta reading. The questions I asked, the feedback I have received. I loved going over that with you guys, and hopefully you found that helpful. And again, check the description box down below because I have somehow linked these forms, whether it's a PDF or a Google Doc or something, it's there. Or maybe it links to my website and I have a Word document there that you can download. I have no idea how I've done it, but if you look at the description box, it's gonna be there somewhere. I wanted to give you guys something that you could use and it could help you. So yeah, so thank you guys for following me along in this series. I had a lot of fun filming it, and if you have any series ideas that you'd like to see me cover next, I would love to go over that with you. Perhaps I could do like a plot to my book with me. I don't know. I'm not a huge plotter, as many of you do know, but it could be something fun. So let me know in the comments down below. But before you go, don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and I will see you on Monday with another video. So thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great weekend. Bye. I guess without much introduction, I don't know. To their last thoughts, I don't know why I made a face. Next question, and just mind your own business and I'll mind mine. Why is it so big? Get off the camera strap. Yep, thank you. Have a great life. Bye. No, shoo. He's gone. It's fine. No, get out of the chips. No. They're not like, here, I'll show you. They're not like chips. They're my these. They look like potato chips, right? They're like, oh no, he's in there. No. They're like rose petals that are yellow. Great. Oh, great. I'm gonna be, oh, crap. Now I messed up the angle.